Welcome back to the shop today. Thank you for joining me again. Today I want to talk about a product spotlight, a new product from one of my favorite barrel manufacturers, Ballistic Advantage. So let's get into what they have to offer now, and a pretty exciting barrel profile and a pretty exciting cartridge I think you may enjoy. All right, ever since its inception about 3 years-ish ago, I've been a really big fan of the 6mm ARC. I think it's a great DMR cartridge, designated marksman rifle for semi-automatic platforms. It's a great varmint cartridge, it's a great hunting cartridge, it's a great competition cartridge. It's very versatile at long range, it's very accurate at long range, and it does extend the distance you can shoot with a DMR type of rifle by a good bit, by quite a few hundred yards in a lot of circumstances. As a kind of history buff or military buff and prior military guy, I really am in love with the DMR or special purpose rifle category of rifles. I built more of them when I was running an FFL than just about anything else, and I really love like the concept or context of the Mark 12. The Mark 12 program started in around 2001. In a nutshell, the Mark 12 program was to take the semi-automatic platform available today, which being the M16, and make it a more versatile long-range precision rifle versus the regular standard infantry style rifle. So it kind of bridges the gap between the infantryman and the sniper role, the DMR, designated marksman rifle. And it's lighter weight, higher capacity, all those good things that guys on the ground actually really, kind of were looking for, is like, hey, we need a rifle system capable of the same high rates of fire that we enjoy, high capacity for magazines carry and stuff like that, but without the bulk and weight and specialization of like a sniper system with a bolt action rifle and larger calibers and stuff like that. All right, without going too far down a rabbit hole, the original Mark 12 looked similar to this right here, featuring a PRI carbon fiber handguard, collapsible or A2 style stock, upgraded triggers, and Douglas barrels, an 18-inch SPR barrel, and it was made specifically to accept iron sights and a collar and threading system for quick detach repeatable silencers called the AM5. I'm not going to get into the history too much right now and all the monikers and all that stuff right now, because this is not an actual Mark 12 video. This is a barrel highlight video from company, so we're going to get there. But the one drawback to the Mark 12 or the SPR, the DMR style rifle, chambered in your standard 5.56, was range and reach and punch. That was something I found as a builder limited the cartridge in a lot of ways, or limited the rifle platform in a lot of ways, and didn't really make it a true long range platform, something that could reach 1,000 yards, something along those lines. The 224 Valkyrie came along, and that had some potential, but it was really kind of a wash. But then Hornady came out with the 6mm ARC, and it really changed the game for the DMR platform. Now, when they first announced this, I went all in for the cartridges, I've mentioned in other videos, and I got some barrels. The first barrel I ever got was from Brownells, and it was a Ballistic Advantage 1-in-8 twist 18-inch SPR profile barrel. So it's made specifically for the SPR style of rifle, and it is this guy right here. I've had this on this rifle since the day I built it. It's a cross machine and tool, billet upper and lower receiver with a white oak armament forearm. They have a really nice big fat heavy duty standard barrel nut. They're really precision, really nice, make the barrel a little more accurate, the platform overall. So I went with this 18-inch profile barrel and started testing it. Now it is a 1/8 twist. This is the original, I think it was a Brownells exclusives or something like that where they were product testing. It was a 1/8 twist. I did get a lot of great accuracy out of that barrel. I've gotten a lot of great accuracy, especially at distance, but it kind of had a problem with some of the VLD style bullets, like the Berger 105s, some of the 108s and stuff like that. I had a problem stabilizing them. It would shoot the 107 SMKs, Sierra Match Kings, really well though. I was getting half-minute groups easily with this barrel and the hand load that I developed for it. And after quite a few hundred rounds at distances out to 1,250 yards, it's been a really accurate barrel. But it's a little on the heavy side, and I'm actually going to transfer that barrel onto my old Mark 12, which is one of my beaters I kept around the shop. This one in 224 Valkyrie. I'm actually going to upgrade that to a 6 arc. The 224 Valkyrie, this was a very accurate rifle, but I'm going to rebuild the top of this thing, the top end of this thing for 6 arc, or build another top for this thing as a 6 arc. So that's where the old barrel is going to go. My desire for this platform going forward was to take my tried and true SPR here, which I really, really love, and turn it into a more dedicated hunting rifle. The SPR profile is a little bit heavy for a standard hunting rifle, and you kind of lose a little bit of the velocity that the 6 arc can really utilize, even more so by the 18-inch barrel. It's not a big loss, and it's a perfect, actually the 18-inch barrel I think is probably about the perfect all-around barrel length for that cartridge. However, if you want a little more juice out of it, you're gonna have to go with something like a 20-inch, which is what we're gonna talk about today. This is the Ballistic Advantage 20-inch, okay, fluted barrel. All right, so they have a 20-inch premium and all that good stuff, and it's a great barrel. The overall quality of Ballistic Advantage is really, really good. They're really accurate barrels, especially for the cost and everything. They're not as expensive as some of them out there, like the Douglas barrels or Shailene and stuff like that. You can get all these other match-grade barrels out there that are probably twice the price, or you can go with the carbon fiber, which is 4 times the price, which is insane, especially considering how fast you might actually shoot this barrel out. I will say, if you're going to go with carbon fiber for a designated hunting rifle, it's a lightweight hunting rifle, it's the way to go if you can afford a $900 barrel. But for just a few $100s, $250, maybe $250, $300, you can get something like this, which is pretty darn lightweight. The fluting actually makes it a whole lot lighter weight than my 18-inch SPR is, and it's chambered in 1 7 twists. Let's see if you can see that. So that is something that Ballistic Advantage has changed since the beginning of putting barrels out through Brownells. I don't know if that was Brownells exclusive or Brownells requested, but they were originally 1 8 twist. And the 1 8 twist is a little bit slow for the heavier projectiles that the 6mm arc is kind of geared towards. So I'm glad to see they went with the 1 7 twist on this new barrel. It seems extremely lightweight. I'll put the specs up here for weight, ounces, and all that stuff, and it has just been released in the last couple weeks. So I just got mine, and I back ordered it 2 to 2.5 months ago when they first put it on their catalog for dealers. So I don't know if these are available to the public yet, but I will check. All right, so that's what we're gonna do today. Honestly, I'm just gonna put this bad boy on my tried and true, my Mando. It's one of the Mandalorian. I'm a nerd, I'm a geek, you know, for sci-fi, so I went with the Mandalorian style billet lower from CMT, and I don't regret it at all. Put that on here, and then we're gonna do some testing and see what kind of gain in velocity and accuracy we can get out of this bad boy. Let's see if it makes it a little lighter, a little more accurate for a little longer range, because this is gonna be my designated hunting rifle, and it's a little bit heavy as is. It's fun, and it really, really shoots well, but a little bit more velocity and a little lighter weight might not be a bad thing. All right, short side quest. If you've never tried the White Oak Armament standard handguard, I highly recommend it. Their just basic handguard, this is a 15-inch, I believe, is probably one of the most precision, well-machined, lightweight, M-lock all the way around, great, wonderful. But it has this gigantic steel barrel nut. Let me see if we can see that. See that steel barrel nut? Look at that. That's massive. Look at that big sucker. It's almost 3 inches long. This right here makes all the difference in the made-up between a barrel and a receiver. A good stiff receiver, billet machined, also highly recommend. Good barrel, obviously, but this right here is bread and butter. That's meat and taters. And this is the best barrel nut system and handguard system I've ever seen. The only, and this is an absolute superficial, the only drawback to it that I've seen is the timing of it. You have to time the receiver and handguard to line them up, but that's a minuscule minor thing because there's no like tabs or anything like that. But this is the sturdiest barrel nut in the industry, hands down, no question. It's got big old pins in it, so you can get it, you know, use a big old breaker bar to get it on and off or whatever, and a torque wrench. So that's the way to go. Oh yeah, that's already a good bit lighter, like that. Ounces are pounds and pounds are pains. No-go gauge does not. Ooh, that's good. Okay, that's the no-go. Well, there's your problem right there. Well, it's not locking full into battery. Yeah, alright, that's not going in the battery. That's okay. Let's try it with the field gauge. It's not going into battery, so let's try the field gauge. Field gauge is not going into battery either, so that's a good sign. Now let's go with the go gauge. These are gauges from Pacific Tool and Gauge out in California. They are pretty darn accurate. Alright, there we go. Now we're all the way. Okay. Let's do a quick show and tell. A quick lesson. Now, I was hoping this wouldn't be the case with this barrel, but looking back to my notes, it was the case with every barrel I've come across so far from Ballistic Advantage. You have go gauge, no-go gauge, and the field gauge. These are your gauges you measure your chamber with. How tight the chamber is, minimum tolerances, maximum tolerances, unacceptable tolerances. So far, all the barrels I've gotten from Ballistic Advantage have closed just fine on the go gauge, fit the chamber, the standard semi-spec well. Most of them have closed on the no-go gauge as well, barely closed, barely catching the lugs. But they do not close on the field gauge. Okay, the field gauge is like your maximum allowable. If your rifle closes on a field gauge, you have a problem, and it's going to cause big problems later on if you try to shoot that thing. With headspace and all that stuff, way too big. So we don't close on the field gauge, so that's a good thing. It's, you know, happy. I will happily put it together, shoot the rifle. Your accuracy on that kind of situation may or may not be the best, but I will say I had the same issue with the last barrel and the other few barrels I've tested from Ballistic Advantage, in that they would close on the no-goes but not on the field gauges, and they shot just fine. Okay, I didn't bump my shoulders back on my reloads as much, and all of the factory brass and stuff like that seemed to work just fine, and get good accuracy and good extraction, ejection, all those good things. Since it is a semi-automatic rifle, the tolerances need to be a little bit higher or broader for cartridges, so it's not the end of the world. So if you're building a barrel out like this and you're speccing it out and you've got your go gauges and you just have the go and the no-go and it closes on your no-go gauge, for Ballistic Advantage specifically, I will say, or Aero Precision, or similar manufacturers of these type of barrels, I will say get yourself a field gauge and test with that. If it does not close on the field gauge, you should be good to go with most semi-spec ammo and most reloads if you're not bumping the shoulders too much. If this was a bolt action, different story. If it does not function as a bolt action with just the no and the go and the no-go gauges, like if it will actually close on a no-go gauge as a bolt action precision rifle, then it's a non-starter for me. I'll reset the barrel. That's because I have control over that barrel depth and headspace. That's because you're looking for more precise, you know, tighter tolerance headspaces. If you're reloading, you will probably want to not bump the shoulders back as far on your cases for this type of rifle if it does close on the no-go gauge. So keep that in mind going forward if you're reloading. But all your factory stuff should work. I look back through my notes to verify all this too and just make sure I wasn't experiencing a fluke here, and it was pretty common with some of the Ballistic barrel, all of the Ballistic Advantage barrels I've used, and with I think Aero, maybe Faxon too. But the custom barrels like Shaw, I did Shaw custom barrels more than anything. They all were really a little tighter in the tolerances, so they would not close on the no-goes. And those rifles that I built out of those barrels have actually eked out the accuracy of the Ballistic Advantage, but they are custom barrels as well. So let's put that where it is. It's a custom barrels, a small shop. They're a little finer grade. And like White Oak Armament makes some amazing barrels. They do not make anything for the 6-arc, unfortunately, but most of their stuff, when I've spec'd it out over the years and used it, you only need the go and no-go gauges, and you don't need a field gauge because they're not going to close on the no-goes. I can't recall any of them needing a field gauge to stop that shoulder or to stop the headspace, or to use for testing the headspace. I cannot recall a single one that did not actually just work with your goes and your no-goes. So Being said, I'm gonna put this thing together and get it out to the range, do some testing, start messing around with velocities and loads. Since it is a 1 in 7 twist, I'm gonna try some of the heavier loads that I was not getting the best accuracy out of. I gotta dig out a bunch of stuff that I still haven't digged out since we moved, so I've gotta dig all that out in the next few weeks, and then I can get to the range and really put some rounds down range with this thing. But overall, it actually seems to be a good bit lighter than the SPR was, just the upper that I've got together right now. But voila, movie magic, we're back together. I will say right off the bat, initial impressions, it definitely feels lighter on the fore end than the 18-inch did. They may not be a huge difference in the weight. I'm gonna have to look that up. I'll post the weights here for their 18-inch SPR barrel and their 20-inch fluted barrel. I'll post the weights here. I don't think there's a huge difference, but it definitely feels lighter. It balances really well. So, I mean, I can see carrying this a little easier in the field for sure. Yeah, that's nice. And a little bit extra velocity there. So that's always fun. We interrupt this program to bring you to the exciting new launch of a new product we're going to offer. And I'm just kidding, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm gonna interject real quick and say that I did get a chance to go out to the range and start breaking this bad boy in after building it out, putting it together. Not really build, I already built it. So I just put a new barrel on it. So it's not really a new build, it's a new barrel on an old build. So I got a chance to go out to the woods real quick and do some rough shooting and some velocity testing. So I actually found some interesting results that I will correlate, because I had to do it at a short range. I was shooting at 36 yards. Everything's real dense where I usually go right now, and the best place I could find to do this, and I had my son with me as well, so I was looking for the safest and best place to do this, which we did not video, because I never take my video out whenever I take my kids out to do this kind of stuff, because safety first, and it's easier to pay attention to what the little gremlins are doing with firearms. So anyway, I had a chance to do some shooting at 36 yards to do a rough 0, and if you want to see about my theories and thoughts on calculating accuracy at short range, okay, long distance accuracy calculated at short range, you can see the other video that I made on that subject specifically and the findings of that video. I won't go through the whole process here, but I will say, based off of the 18-inch barrel that I had in this thing, the velocities and accuracy I got at 36 yards testing that one over the last 3 years, and the correlating results to long range, this barrel actually shows some very, very good promise. First few rounds through this thing, we're printing about the same kind of minute of angle measurements at 36 yards as the 18-inch barrel. So they were giving me similar accuracy, really close in accuracy, getting about, you look at that, that's one of my accuracy groups right there. And that's 1, 2, 3, 4, that was 4 rounds? 3 rounds, 4 rounds, so it's a small sample, small subset. But it was correlating at about 0.9 minutes of angle with the other 36-inch or 36-yard groups I've gotten off the 18-inch barrel at this thing, and they all kind of printed about a half minute to 3/4 minute, or on up to maybe around a minute on average with this particular load, and then downrange they equally shot as well. So there was a good correlation with the accuracy from short range to long range. So I digress. What that means is there's a very good sign that this barrel is going to be equally accurate to the 18-inch barrel with the 1/8 twist, maybe even a little more so with the heavier bullets. And that is kind of the foundation of this video is you don't have to buy an expensive barrel to get good accuracy, and Ballistic Advantage does inexpensive or affordable barrels really well using 416 stainless steel, is what these barrels are made out of, and it's one of my favorite non-knife steels. I use it for all my guards and fittings. It can be heat treated, it machines really well, it's very precise and all that good stuff. So they use a really good high grade steel for their barrels, and it shows. So the other thing I did get a chance to do, other than let my kid shoot and plink around a little bit, which he did really well, he is getting tuned up for deer season, so he's pretty excited about that, was take some velocity measurements. And on average, the velocity gain was about 50 to 60 feet per second. And this is with a fresh barrel. So I gained about 50 to 60 feet per second over what the 18-inch barrel was doing, and that is pretty exciting. So I'm actually up over 2,600 feet per second with this load. And this is this specific load. It's a 107 Sierra Match King. I'm not going to give you the powder or charge, but I will say that I am slightly below the max charge for the gas gun loads suggested in Hornady's reloading manual for the 6mm arc. So this is actually a pretty conservative load. It's not a hot load by any stretch. It is tuned specifically for gas gun, okay? It is the gas gun load loaded off of their load data for that. And I've gotten it down. It's about a few tenths of a grain lower than the max. And because I found the most accuracy in that range with this powder, these bullets, and the primers I was using, which are Federal 205 match ARs. So that is my most consistent load. It's my most accurate load, and I have the most of it. So that's what I use for my testing and my baseline for all my 6-arc stuff. And it prints really well in everything I've shot it in. The velocities are mild and moderate to, they're not super high velocity. It's not a screaming 2,700 foot per second monster, but it is a consistent velocity. That's really the consistency in the velocities, low standard deviations, and extreme spread is what kind of helped me nail down, like, this is the load I need to keep versus trying to chase more velocity. So I upgraded the barrel to a longer barrel, and I got the velocity I was looking for. I'm now up consistently over 2,600 feet per second with an average of 2,607 out of this barrel, and that's the first few shots. Okay, so that's the first magazine basically through the rifle, and that's a good sign, because generally as rifles break in, they get a little more accurate and they get a little faster. So keep that in mind. So we're off to a good start. There we are with that today. I'm gonna get this on the range, and we're gonna put it through some paces, see how we get for accuracy, velocities, all that good fun stuff. Don't forget to check your gauges. Don't forget to check your specs, and I will see y'all on the range.